Infrastructure is crumbling and the problems are only getting worse. The pressure to find solutions is hot. Let's talk about why American cities have no water, no electricity, and no money to fix their infrastructure problems. Welcome to the Infrastructure Hot Seat Podcast, hosted by Chad Smeltzer.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Infrastructure Network. My name is Chad Smeltzer. I am the host. Today's guest is Shauna Urlacher, who's with Urban Hydro Engineering. You're the president and CEO. Thank you for joining me, Shauna.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Shauna, you've been in the infrastructure. I've noticed your background in FEMA and some other things. So let's start from the beginning. How did you get into just engineering and infrastructure?
Boy, I grew up in Montana. I'm a ranch kid, so I grew up on a horse ranch in Montana, and when I was in high school, I was in this advanced class. It was a small like regional school, and you were either advanced or you were a regular kid, and I was one of the advanced kids. So there were five of us that went through high school together, and um, our math teacher, so we had the same math teacher all 4 years, and our math teacher would
Okay.
always introduce us as the future engineers. um, I
Oh,
didn't know what an engineer
nice.
was, but I quickly learned. So that's really why I became an engineer, because apparently that became part of my identity. So I went to college in Montana at Montana Tech, and
Okay.
I got my bachelor's in civil engineering. And I had interned in the Chicago area for a couple summers. And then when I graduated, I found a job as a consultant in the Chicago suburbs and moved out here, and I've been here ever since. So that's how it all started.
That's awesome. You and I are close. We're both in Chicago area, so that's always cool. And then getting to meet virtually is also interesting because we're not far away. But it's just nowadays with digital, it's just easier to connect this way.
Right. Yeah.
So
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
always fun. So you have four siblings.
No, there were five of us in the class, five students in our
Oh, in the
class.
class.
I
Sorry,
just have one sibling.
got
I
it.
have a brother that's 2 years older than me.
Got it. Growing up in Montana and then moving to Chicago had to be a whole new experience for you, I would
It
imagine.
sure was. Yeah, it was very
So,
different. I was able to try it out during the summers and see how I liked it. Um, which I didn't envision myself coming back to Chicago, but you know, that's just the way things happen. And I always envisioned myself going back out west, and I probably will someday. But right now that I enjoy it. This is where all my connections are. I didn't understand at the time. As you work, you build your connections and your network, and that kind of sucks you in even more. So, yeah, so I have a lot of friends and connections out here. I've been working out here for over 20 years now. So,
oh,
yeah.
wow. Okay. It's been a while. So I was looking at your history and it looks like you mentioned about working with an engineering firm, but you're also involved with FEMA at some point in time.
Yeah, so I want to explain. So on my LinkedIn profile, a lot of people
Yeah.
look at that like a catalog of where they've worked, like their resume.
Right.
So as a business owner, I look at it a little differently, more like what my experience has been as on projects. Like what things have I accomplished? So I put, my clients and the project I worked for. So I've always been in the municipal side since
Yeah.
since I started. I've always had different municipal clients, and really, who cares what company I was working with when I got
Right.
that experience, because I bounced around a little bit from one consulting firm to another before starting my own firm in 2018. So yeah, it'll show that you'll see it. It's a different approach. So
I,
I'm interested in your feedback, but I do work for FEMA. I'm a contractor with FEMA right now. So that's probably what
okay.
you were seeing.
Yeah. I just kind of went through grazing through, glancing through it and looking at the different things you've done. And that just popped out, in a couple of things that I was, looking at. And then, you know, when you got in Chicago and you were working with engineering consulting firms and stuff, what were some of the things you were doing while you were there with working for these firms?
Yeah, so I early on I kind of developed a specialty of stormwater management. So I was
Okay.
a review engineer for many years, became a design engineer, did a lot of permitting, and as I went from one consulting firm to another, I realized that I needed to have that special something every time I came. I needed to have a skill that no one else would have. And I didn't know it at the time, but that was a great, like, launching pad for my own business because I was learning skills and trying to find skills that I would have that no one else would ever have when I went to that next firm. So I was doing stormwater, and that's been my background. But I quickly became, a grant writer and started doing grant writing for projects initially. I do some other
Mhm.
grant writing too, but also this FEMA program that you referenced, the CRS program. I became one of the go-to people for that, which again was something they didn't really have in the other firms. So yeah, that was my approach. I don't know if it was good or bad, but that's how I got where I'm at.
What did you like so much about stormwater management?
I like the challenge of it. There's so many different aspects of it. There's the underground system, there's the above ground system, and it changes all the time. People, it's like the stormwater system's hiding in plain sight. Nobody even
Yeah.
realizes it's there. And I saw, people filling in the side yard swales and not understanding, like, that's a major overland flow route. And many
Yeah.
times flooding their own property because they blocked that overland flow path. So things like that, that just, it's ever changing, always moving, and it's a complex system. So there was my first firm, there really wasn't an expert in on the stormwater side at the time. So I thought, well, I'll give it a try. And I really liked it. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's it's very complex, and a lot of people kind of shy away from it. So I thought, there's
Yeah.
my chance.
When you're talking about stormwater management, I think a corrugated metal pipe. You see it like falling apart everywhere, but that was the cheapest pipe. It seems like put in the ground, 20, 30, 40 years ago, and people are just like yanking it out now. Did is that because of? I'm just curious. Is that because of like specifications, like with the way we wrote stuff in the past? It's like an easy way to put in some infrastructure
Yeah.
cheaply, maybe? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, corrugated pipe is one of those, the cheap and easy method, but it's still not even cheap and easy. But as far as stormwater
Yeah.
infrastructure, it's less expensive than the concrete pipe. It's easier to install. Um,
Yeah.
but it rusts out, and it silts really bad in the bottom because that those corrugations can capture that sediment. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of issues, of course, you find out after many, many years of using it that, hey, maybe there's something better out there that we could do. So yeah, we're always
Yeah.
learning, of course, always learning and trying to make things better every time with every project.
Yeah. Those I remember doing some projects and looking at all these different pipes under these highways and stuff, and it's all been corrugated and the bottoms are gone. It's all rusted out and everything's got to be rehabbed. And these days, just with all the degradation of the infrastructure. But one of the things I didn't realize, and you mentioned it just previously, was the out of sight, out of mind kind of concept with the stormwaters and stormwater management. And underneath Walmart, I was at this parking lot of a Walmart, and we were looking for something. It was with a city of La Crosse, Wisconsin, and we are up there. And I didn't realize how massive the underground infrastructure was of this, stormwater management of this Walmart parking lot. It was like 36-inch, 48-inch pipe, and it was all interconnected underneath that parking
Right.
lot. I was like, wow, this is amazing.
Yeah, yeah,
It's
you might have seen like an underground detention storage area. They do that a lot where they
okay.
need a lot of parking, but you have to control that stormwater because if it was grass and now it's pavement, that water's gonna go somewhere, right? So
Yeah.
they when they put underground storage systems, I'm not a huge fan of underground storage because it is really out of sight. Like nobody
Yeah.
can get in there. If they do get in there, I mean, there's fumes, there's safety issues involved. So they don't
Uh-huh.
go in and inspect as often. And those can fail and they're very, very expensive to fix because there's
Yeah.
pavement over top of them. Tear it all out. It's a big undertaking. So yeah, I've seen some failures, and those are frightening. So I've tried to shy
Yeah.
away, and you don't have the water quality benefits of, the grass will filter the oils and grease out of the water. It'll, seep into the ground, and so you don't get those
Yeah.
water quality benefits either.
That's an interesting, when we look at different stormwater when it goes to the ocean, and there's no way to really capture the oil, and like you mentioned, the just stuff from the roads and the sidewalks that gets pushed into the roads, and then it goes down into the drain. It goes right into the waterway.
Yeah.
There's no treatment process for
No,
that.
and I think people don't realize that, if they dump something in their drain in the street at the curb, that's going to the stream. That's where they're fishing, where they're boating. That's eventually going to, like make it to Lake Michigan, or, somewhere where we're wanting to enjoy that water. So it doesn't get filtered
Yeah.
or cleaned. It's not going to a treatment plant most times. So
Right.
yeah, you don't
Yeah.
wanna
Unless it's
dump all your
combined.
grease from your breakfast into the into the inlet. Absolutely.
Yeah. Is there anything that environmentally people are doing to try and, you know, remediate that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, of course, education is a big thing. We need
Okay.
to educate the public and help them understand, like, streams are not dumping grounds. Don't dump old tires and, shopping carts and, bottles and everything in the stream. That's not
Shopping carts. It's amazing what you can
It
find down
is,
in
it's
there, those big
crazy.
pipes. Yeah.
And you'll see now on all the inlets at the curb, they'll say like drains to creek or drains to river, do not dump or something like that. We're putting that actually on the grates now. Um, but other than education, there's new regulations out there, of course. So we try to, especially on construction sites, that's where you get a lot of sediment that gets mixed in with that water. You get that muddy water that goes right into the storm sewer system, and off to the creek it goes. So now we require them to
Yeah.
filter that and try to keep that to a minimum. Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, that's good. I mean, trying to do as much as we can to stop that from getting in the waterways is very important.
Right.
I would imagine it's better than what it used to be. I would hope.
Yeah.
Is that kind of the
I
case?
hope so
Okay,
too.
good.
Yeah. We'll have I think with the, vehicles aren't you don't see as many leaks and oil all over the place,
True.
and people hopefully are starting to understand that this water eventually becomes my drinking water. So let's not not dump grease
Yeah.
in there.
I just thought of one other thing that people don't really talk about: road salt going in stormwater.
Exactly.
All that sodium. I mean,
Yes.
I'm sure there's a technical term for it. I don't know exactly what that is, but I mean, road salt constantly being poured on the streets and highways, and then going in the runoff.
And
What?
that's really
Yeah,
hard to get out of the water because it's dissolved,
yeah.
right? So, yeah, that's a big concern, and there's different methods, different things that you can use instead of salt, but really limiting the amount of salt that you put down is the best
Mm,
best thing to do, is just stop it before it starts. Um,
yeah,
yeah, it's really
yeah. Because weren't they using like prune
yeah,
juice or something like
yeah,
that?
beet
Some
juice.
places I don't know much about stormwater. I know sewers, but not not storm as much.
Yeah,
But yeah, they were using like prune juice or something like that to try and keep the roads from freezing.
yeah.
Seems like a very environmental product to
It
apply.
is, but it was they were using beet juice at one time. I don't
Beet
Yeah.
juice, that's what it was. Okay.
Problem is it's really sticky and it gets on your shoes and it smells really bad. So,
Interesting.
I don't know. It depends
Yeah.
on what your tolerance is, if you're if you're gonna use that or not.
You didn't think you were gonna talk about beet juice
I
today, did you?
didn't. I didn't. You never know.
You never know. You never know. That's what we're having these conversations for. What I'm also wondering about is your math. You mentioned math at the beginning of, sounds like that's one skill that you have that you've been very good at, utilizing. So how did you have to go through calculus, algebra? Like how did your math program and your skills develop over the years?
Yeah, so I went and got my engineering degree, got my bachelor's, and yeah, a ton of math, ton of science, physics, all of that, and of course all the computer software too. And you have to
Yeah.
learn that as you go, but they give you kind of the foundation of how to draw things on, draw proposed solutions in AutoCAD or whatever software we were
Right.
using. Um, yeah, so I got my bachelor's from Montana Tech, and then I got a master's in engineering, project management from the University of Wisconsin Madison. I did that while I was working, though, which was really interesting. They tried to incorporate the work that you were doing at work into your schoolwork, so you could kind of kill two birds with one stone, but really learn
Yeah.
like from a real project that you're actually working on. So that was really interesting. Um, and
Yeah.
we had that's where I learned more of the business skills and management skills, and we had some math classes in there too, of statistics and things like that. So yeah, a lot of math going on for all engineers, but it's part of our everyday life for sure.
Yeah. No doubt about that. What do you think about AI nowadays? That's a popular thing coming out, and I'm sure engineers are like, well, it could replace our math or help us with our math calculations and things. What do you think about AI
Right.
nowadays?
So AI it's a hot topic right now for sure.
It is. I figured we might as well talk
Yeah.
about
So
it.
what I've heard, and I've used it a little bit, but not a lot, not extensively. What I've been told is that you have to teach it. Like anything, you have to teach the
Right.
software or it's always going to spit out garbage because you haven't taught it anything. So
Right.
as far as the actual math and calculations, I leave that to the software and the engineers, and I don't trust AI to do that. What I do use it for is when I'm writing. So
Okay.
sometimes I have writer's block and I write a lot. I mean, more than
Yeah.
anyone would ever think an engineer would do. So I I have Grammarly and I just got an email from them every week. I get an email of, what I did and it says I was in like the 99th percentile. I wrote, more than, 99% of the people on Grammarly. I was like, "Wow, that's
Wow.
insane." So,
That's really
yeah,
cool.
I write a lot and every once in a while it's, you just have writer's block or you can't it's not
Right.
flowing or so you can't think of a new idea. um, I use it for that a lot because as
Yeah.
an engineer writing's not always our strong suit. So I do it every day all day long, but every once in a while that's what I really use it for. It's just to think of a new
Yeah.
idea or give me a, a spin that I hadn't thought of, something like that.
That's interesting. You mentioned using it for writing because specifications. One of the reasons I got out of my industry and tried, not trying, working on fixing procurement because the specifications were so bad coming out of these rehabilitation projects for sanitary sewer systems. And I'm looking at I was like, they didn't do a lot of grammar stuff in engineering. It's math, right? And so I'm looking at these and I'm like, this makes no sense. It
Right.
was a lot of copy and pasting going on. That was
Right.
really, so I think AI is definitely going to help us there for
Yeah.
sure with specification writing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it does. It's really a good check. It just you can ask it to rewrite a paragraph or rewrite a couple sentences, expand them, things like that. It's is really helpful for those things. And yeah, I'm with you
Yeah.
on the engineers and their writing.
What Yeah, I use it for sales and just in marketing and things like that because it really does help you, like you said, writer's block, things like that. And you can be creative with it. That's what's cool. And you can be your unique personality with it. You can ask it certain ways to write certain things, and that's what I really found interesting about the AI is being able to be kind of creative with it. Although it has these words that you're just like, okay, you can stop with that word and this word because it's using it all the time. It's like devolve or dive or these different things. I'm like, okay, we can take those out of there.
Right.
Um, but yeah, that's some of the things I've been experiencing with the writing, like GPT and stuff. Now you're in grant writing,
I am.
and this is one of the things before you and I got on the podcast we were talking about is just the grants that are out there. You know, the opportunity for municipalities to get grant funding to help their projects, or
Yeah.
learn more about like how to write these grants is really important, and that sounds like something you're working on, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. So, when I was at one of my former engineering firms, I kind of developed this specialty of, grant writing. I had a client or two that just had big projects, and we would submit, year after year. And so it really allowed me to learn grant writing in a way that a lot of engineers don't see. But I was also still on the design side. So I would, prepare these engineering studies. A lot of communities will say, hey, we have this area that's flooding, study it, tell us your recommendations, how do we fix it? And every time the solution is far more expensive than they ever dreamed. That they were
Yeah.
hoping for, oh, you just need to fix this one pipe and you're good. But that's not the case usually. So
Right.
I would go through and give them these recommendations, and then those reports would just sit on the shelf because they can't afford it. And it really
Hmm.
seemed like that next step should be grant writing. It should be submitting an application for funding, and it wasn't happening. So a lot of the communities, they get these studies back, these ridiculous, millions and millions of dollars that they need to invest, and they would say, "Oh, we can't afford it. Put it on the shelf." And it would stop right
Yeah.
there. And then on the other side, I'm seeing these couple clients that I was working with all the time, and their projects are moving along and they're doing, amazing things. So I was like, this is something they need to be doing. Everybody should be doing this. If they
Yeah.
would just apply, it there's so much money out there. And I mean, of course, you need a good project. You need, to have the right mix of everything. But there's a lot of opportunities out there. And the other issue, the big obstacle, is that these grant applications are really complicated.
Hmm.
They, I can tell you they are very complicated. So, and you have to prepare them in a short amount of time. So you have, maybe a week to 2 weeks to write up, 2,500 page application. And
Wow.
it's intense for sure.
2,500
Yeah, it's
pages.
wild. But
That seems like a lot of wasted paper. I mean, if you got to, especially if it's government, you have to print it out and send it in a vanilla envelope or something. That's a
yeah,
lot.
nowadays we just upload it. So I see the number of pages, but you just upload each section at a time, get it in there, and then you get the feedback
Mm.
later. But yeah, so it's a huge effort in a short amount of time. But once you've submitted once, you can, submit that application to another for another grant or matching funds, or, submit again the next year. And once it's in that system, it's the same application for all, like for FEMA, all of their programs, it's the exact same application. So they can move it from one
Okay.
program to another. So once you go through that effort, you can say, okay, now consider it for this. Now consider it for that.
So basically, you just shop it around once
Yeah,
you've
somebody.
written the, yeah, it's 2,500 pages, and then you start shopping it
Yeah.
around to, okay, see where it can get the funding from. Because I imagine the federal, I, I don't know much about it, but I'm curious. So I imagine the federal funding is different divisions or departments that they allot this different types of funds.
Yeah, so like with FEMA, it gets very complicated because you if you're a community, you are submitting to the state, and then the state
Hmm.
reviews your application, and they decide if they want to include it in their application to FEMA. So they're
Hmm.
like a middleman. So you're a sub applicant to the state who then applies to FEMA.
Interesting.
So
I didn't know it did that. I thought you went straight from the municipality, local government, straight to the federal side, and like skip the state. But that kind of makes more
yeah.
sense that there would be more checks and balances in place. But that's also not so good because the state can determine whether it goes through or not. But if, yeah,
Right.
man, there's got to be some lobbying going on there somewhere, I would
Right. Yeah,
assume.
so you can't do lobbying, but you can what I have
Okay.
done, you just build relationships, right? Which I guess is
Got
what
it. Got it. Got it.
lobbying kinda is. Um, you're building relationships. So, make sure you know the people that are gonna be reviewing it. Throw them ideas and ask them, "Hey, what do you think of this?" or "What do you think of that?" Having that open communication really helps. You know ahead of
Yeah.
time, they're not gonna even look at this. We have to do this instead, or we need to tweak this project to include this. And just brainstorm with the state. The state is a great resource because they see all the applications, statewide,
Yeah.
and they know what funding is coming up. So they know, hey, that project is great, would be great for this program or that program. So as long as you have that good relationship with them, they're going to do what they can. They want to get as much funding to the state as possible. So, you know,
Yeah.
it looks good on them to submit good applications. So they want to work with you, and they're really, really helpful.
So if someone hired you to come on and write the grant, the 2,500 pages that they need to get the project, and I'm still baffled by this 2,500 pages, obviously with tech and everything we're talking about
Outrageous.
with AI. Yeah, it's kind of crazy. But that shows how far behind we are with advancing technology. It should be a super just simple, here's everything, here's our problems, and here's the images of them and videos, and send it in.
Right.
Like, this is going to fall apart if we don't fix it, right? So you would think it'd be simple, but it isn't. But anyway, it, and they hire you to write the grants and develop everything and then send it into the state.
Right.
Um, what determines, is it just a better writing, like the more clear, concise? Like, what makes it different from another grant writer? Just curious.
Well, so the application itself is, very involved. And I think
Okay.
because I'm an engineer and I've done the
Hmm.
calculations, I can pull out of those reports the information that I need, or say,
Mm,
hey, you need to rerun this a different way or do something different. So I can get that information out of their plans, out of their specs, out of their reports, in a way that some people wouldn't be able to even understand how to read this, output from
yeah.
some
Okay.
software. So there's that part of it. But then there's also, so grant writing is more, I think of it more like marketing in a way, because you're
Okay.
selling your project to the selection committee. You're explaining how wonderful, highlight the really good aspects, and you really have to understand what they think are the good aspects. What are they really interested in hearing? One of the first
Interesting.
applications I secured was, it was a new police station, and the community was focused on why they needed a new police station. And they needed it because of, the old police station had asbestos and mold, and it was condemned, and all of, these things. Sounds horrible,
Wow.
right?
Yeah.
But we were submitting to EPA, and they didn't care one bit about that. They
Uh huh.
care about the water quality issues. So all the environmental
Ah.
issues. So when I submitted the application, I didn't even mention that the building was condemned. I said, there's an underground storage tank that we don't know what's in it. There's, contaminated ground. There's all these environmental concerns that we're going to fix. And that's what they wanted to hear. So it's
Yeah.
telling them,
Wow.
the part of the story that they wanna hear, so that the
That's really
community can
cool.
eventually get what they need, Absolutely.
That is a skill, Shauna. That is good. That makes a lot of sense too, because they're going to accept something that's,
Right.
written in that, in that format versus, hey, there's mold everywhere, asbestos everywhere. Okay, great. We'll just take it away.
Yeah.
They locally they could do that, but if you're talking underground and leaching into the environment, that's a whole nother world of environmental issues. So that makes more sense to
Yeah.
go with that approach.
Yeah.
Nice. That's really good.
Yeah, so it's kind of marketing, it's a little bit of
Yeah.
engineering, and the FEMA applications still require some analysis. You have to do a benefit cost analysis, you have to do, like, a lot of different calculations go into that submittal.
Hmm.
So it does really take an engineer to do it. Um, but an
Yeah.
engineer that's able to, write, like we said, you have to be able to write and write clearly and explain yourself and get the right points across to the right people.
Yeah, that is really cool, man. I'm glad we got to connect because I've learned so much just about this grant writing process today.
Yeah,
Man, that's why I love doing these podcasts because you just learn so much about the things you just don't know
right.
that people do day in and day out, like yourself, of writing grants. It's and then having the, like you said, the engineering background that you have makes it even better because uh, you can connect with probably another engineer that's on the EPA side, for
Right.
example, that gets it. It's like, oh well, this is well done. It's put together really nice.
Yeah, and with FEMA,
Yeah.
their application, so the whole point is to reduce risk from natural hazards, from severe storms, from hurricanes, tornadoes, all of those things. So we have to
Hmm.
explain the modeling. I have to explain,
Yeah.
we modeled the existing conditions. This is what we found. We modeled the proposed. This is how it's going to fix it. So I have to be able to
Yeah.
understand the modeling and the reports and the plans so that I can explain it. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So, just curious, how do is there a lot of, like, what money's out there? Like what, and is there a lot of writers like yourself, or what's that look like? The money and the writing.
Well, so I don't see a lot of other grant writers, not that specialize in like FEMA grants or stormwater type
Hmm.
grants. I really haven't seen a lot of that, and that's really why I started my business. And I've started this like educational series of videos, and
I saw those. They're good.
yeah. So I've been trying to kind of get the word out and explain it because I know what I do every day and I understand it, but I didn't really realize how so many people don't even know what the opportunities are out there. So yeah, there's FEMA has an annual program, and they have really shifted their focus. So it used to be, we talk about reactive versus proactive. So it used to be reactive, like somebody flooded, let's help them repair. And now it's
Yeah.
more proactive and okay, we have this area is at risk. How do we, fix that before there's an issue, before we flood again? Um, and so now that they've changed that, they've shifted that a little bit. They've opened the door to new types of projects. So you don't have to
Okay.
be, near a river to submit to FEMA. Everyone always thinks you have to be in the regulatory floodplain. And that's not
Yeah.
true. You actually, if you've done a model, if you've studied it, it could be just any random neighborhood that floods. Um,
Hmm.
doesn't have to be, anywhere near a river, which is great because I know like in the Chicago area, we have, just neighborhood flooding all over the place. And
Yeah.
it really, impacts people's lives day to day. Um, so that's really great. And other types of projects like, you know, getting a generator for your pump station, or burying overhead electric lines so that the next storm you don't lose power. Things like that are now eligible. Um, there's a lot of great things, and really trying to shift the community's minds and realize like we need to look proactively. What could we do? What could we submit? We always talk about. I don't know if you've heard the term flood amnesia. No.
No.
So flood
New one.
amnesia is like it sounds. It floods and it's horrible. Everybody's, that's their top priority. Let's fix this flooding. We don't ever want this to happen again. And then it doesn't rain for a while and you don't get that big storm for, the next year and the next year and the next year. And it's like, oh, well,
Right.
maybe we don't have to worry about that. We have all these other things we need to worry about right now.
Right.
Communities, their budgets are tight and they're pulled in every direction. And I mean, it's madness at a village hall. I worked in a village hall for 7 years. So it's craziness. But they need, that's when it's dry, during those dry times when nobody's flooding, nobody's calling you, that's
Right.
when you need to submit for a grant because it takes some time to get the money, go through the process. and you want that money when you need it. You want to go ahead, and if you could fund, so normally FEMA will fund 75% of the
Okay.
project costs. So if you only had to pay 25% of the project, could maybe then you could afford it,
It's huge.
right?
Yeah.
And maybe you could get matching funds from some, from a local agency or the state or something. So yeah, you really need to think long term with these grants, but it could really pay off if
Yeah.
if you
You were mentioning something about the amount of money, and we're almost out of time. But I wanted to talk about you mentioned something about a decent amount of funds available that people aren't just they're not getting.
yeah,
So
absolutely.
what was some of that numbers? They were pretty
They're
high.
big. Yeah, so FEMA, they have a limit for each project. The limit is $50 million, which is
Wow.
outrageous. Um, you don't see very many of those projects, but
Right.
you can if you have a big project and you can afford the 25% match. So if you could fund 25% of that, then yeah, they'll definitely consider it. And they have awarded some $50 million grants out there. So
Yeah.
that's a lot of money. Um,
Yeah.
and that's every year. The program changes every year, but that's been the limit per project for quite a
Hmm.
while now. So yeah,
Wow.
that's a lot of money.
That's a lot of money. You could do a lot of things with that, I would
Yeah,
assume,
a
you know.
lot of good.
Can you yeah, I just have one more question. I have a lot more questions, but we're running out of time. Can you consolidate projects for a grant, like multiple, or does it have to be one individual project?
Um, Sort of. There's instances where you can combine projects,
Okay.
but really you need to show like the benefits outweigh the costs for each one. So
Okay.
you normally would submit each one separately. You can be selected for
Okay.
multiple grants in the same year. Um, that's a possibility too, but usually I try to prioritize and say, okay, let's go for this one this year, or submit these couple this year. And sometimes you'll see like a county that wants to spread money out to its communities, and they can then combine it into a program, and that could get
Okay.
funding. So I have seen that.
This is really cool. I have so many more questions. We're definitely doing another podcast or a
Yeah.
live event, video event, or something down the road here, Shauna. To end this, how can people get a hold of you? They want to learn more about grant writing. What's the best way to connect?
Yeah, well, I found you through LinkedIn. I'm all over LinkedIn. So if you just, Google Shauna Urlacher, you'll find me on LinkedIn. You can also go to urbanhydroeng.com. I have, a website there, and you can contact me there too.
Awesome. This has been great,
Yeah.
Shauna. I'm so excited we got to do this and talk about grant writing. I've learned so much today about grant writing. My mind's just going to process this all day. So, yeah, I look forward to definitely doing another conversation about this, because I think it's people need to be more aware about what's out
Yeah,
there and what they can do for their communities for sure.
absolutely.
So, thanks a
Yeah,
lot.
that'd be fun.
Yeah, awesome. Well, thank you so much. Have a
You
great day.
too.
Thank you for listening to the Infrastructure Hot Seat podcast. We hope that this show brought you some insight on relevant topics within the infrastructure world. Please join us every 2 weeks on Tuesday for the next episode. If you're interested in being a guest on this podcast, please set up a 15-minute interview with your host at calendly.com/Chad Smeltzer.